Yo YouTube! So today I want to talk to y'all about my favorite figure drawing books. As a self-taught artist, I had to kind of find this information on my own, so I'm making this video to hopefully help someone along on their own art journey. In addition to talking about the books, I'm also going to show you some pages from my figure drawing sketchbooks. Some of these are just live from the model, and others are pieces and sketches that I did while working through the books themselves. While I do use different mediums, you'll notice that in these sketchbooks it's primarily mechanical pencil drawings. I love mechanical pencil, it was the first utensil I ever used, so it's just always felt comfortable to me. Now that being said, I do not suggest that if you're starting out on your art journey, that you actually use mechanical pencil. Conte or charcoal, something a little bit thicker, is a little bit more forgiving, and it'll be kinder on your wrist in the long run. Now, with that being said, work with whatever you have available to you. Crayons, anything. The important part is that you're putting in the mileage. Now, this video is also not going to be about anatomy per se, but more drawing the figure. For anatomy, I suggest Stonehouse's anatomy. I've done an entire video on it showcasing a sketchbook that I completed, so I'm not really going to be talking about that too much in this video. And that isn't to say that anatomy is not important when drawing the figure. It's absolutely important. But you can still learn how to draw the figure without knowing basic anatomy. Sure, you might do some weird things like make the limbs bend too far or things will look a little bit wobbly, but a lot of that can be hidden in stylization. So a lot of cartoonists, animators, while they know anatomy from experience, a lot of them rely on shape language, which is a great way to draw the figure because it reduces everything down to simple shapes and you're not bogged down by the medical knowledge. For me, I love that stuff. It actually helps me to correct poses or change poses during those figure drawing sessions because I understand human anatomy enough. So if you're looking for anatomy help, check out my other video. Pick up Stonehouse's anatomy if you can. It's a great resource and one I highly recommend if you're looking to up that skill set. Now, if you're just focused on drawing a human body, Michael Hampton's Figure Drawing Design and Invention is a beautiful read. He does a great job of simplifying the human form into basic shapes. And this is a principle that you can use in both fine arts and in animation. When I was reading through this book, I would sketch out the diagrams and reinforce the knowledge that I was gaining. If you are trying to learn how to draw the figure from these books, this is the approach that I would really suggest you take. When I was working through this book, I was really into colored mechanical pencil lead, so I did this in kind of two tones and used markers occasionally, but a lot of it was really just mechanical pencil. One of the main things I like about Hampton's book is he approaches these high-level concepts in a very beginner-friendly way. I'm not going to say that everything is instantly digestible, but he really does try and make it as approachable as possible. There are several sections in his book where he goes over the fundamentals just to make sure that the reader is well equipped to learn this information. Now, as a caveat here, while I found Michael Hampton's book really informative, this was not the first time I had exposure to these concepts. This wasn't even the second or the third. This was probably the 15th to the 20th time I had gone through this. So if you're brand new to drawing, cut yourself some slack. It's not going to come out perfect the very first time. Now, that being said, Hampton's book is a great place to start. It talks about proportion and some portraiture, and even goes into some of the fundamentals of rendering a three-dimensional form. So if you're new to drawing or just ready to take it serious, this is my first recommendation. Now, if you have a good understanding of how to draw the figure, I would suggest Andrew Loomis's Figure Drawing for All It's Worth. It's a bit more academic and a bit more verbose, but I love how Loomis writes. He writes in a very clear, no-nonsense style, and his work speaks for himself. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Loomis, Andrew Loomis is going to be kind of a titan of industry when it comes to the golden age of illustration. He's kind of characterized as one of the Americana illustrators, as a lot of his work kind of focused on the idolized version of the American dream. One thing that I really enjoy about his book is the fact that he goes into rendering a bit. So he talks about value and lighting, in addition to proportion of the figure. His book gives some really great practical exercises for you to do, like this lighting exercise using a foam head. And it's really that emphasis on lighting and rendering that kind of sets his book apart from the other books we'll be talking about in this video. For Loomis really tries to give you everything that you need in his books. He talks about composition, lighting, proportion, setting multiple figures in perspective. He really does seem to be trying to equip his audience with as much information as they need, and it's written in a very concise manner, so the actual word count of this book is fairly light. It is one of those books that you'll go back to reference and to pull out gems, because there's just so much information packed into it that you can't absorb it all in one reading. I am by no means a master of Loomis's process, but his process has informed my own a lot. I kind of picked out what I could from his style and his methods, and adopted it to what works for me. And while his book does go over general shape language and some anatomy, I think the biggest boon from his book is the multi-figure composition work that he does. Getting multiple figures to look like they exist on the same plane is rather tricky, and he gives a lot of tips and tricks on how to do that successfully. Now, if you are brand new to drawing, this is not the book I'd say to start with. There's a lot of great information in it, but it will overwhelm you if you're not familiar with some of the concepts. This next book is also going to be more towards the expert side, and it's going to be Tom Fox Draws Anatomy for Artists, Drawing Form, and Pose. Now, the reason I believe this to be a more expert level book is because Fox explores drawing the figure in very unique perspectives. His work reminds me of Kim Jong-gi, who was a master of perspective. This high-level perspective work is tricky for a lot of artists, myself included, but the other thing that Fox Draws does is he allows for a certain looseness in his drawings that I feel like anyone can learn from. If you struggle with making your figures too boxy or relying on too straight of lines, Fox is a great teacher as he allows for more fluidity in his drawings. One thing that I really enjoy about his book is that he almost takes a sculptor's approach to the figure. So he'll give you the basic shape language and then he'll build form on top of those shapes. It's kind of a unique take because while he does discuss anatomy, he doesn't really give you every single muscle group and what it's doing. He just tries to start with a simple shape and then carve out those features. I do think that his writing is really approachable and there are a lot of great learns in his book. I wouldn't hold on to the book if I didn't find it valuable. It's just, his book is so dense with visual reference that if you're trying to draw every diagram and every pose, it will take an obscene amount of time. He breaks down his book through different sections of the body, and within each section he gives you kind of an animator's perspective of kind of the figure in motion, which is a really great thing to think about when you're drawing, especially when you're designing your compositions. And in a lot of his diagrams he includes wrapping lines, so you can really get a deep understanding of the form itself. Now, from a physical footprint of this book, it is the largest of all the ones that we've addressed, and it's because he does such a thorough job drawing each form in a different perspective to really inform the reader, so can't fault him on the oversized book, definitely worth picking up. Now, this next book is a bit of a wild card. It's Design Your Own Anime and Manga Characters from TV Choi. I picked this up and I'm surprised by how much I do enjoy it. It is not the most thorough book, I will say that, but it does have some great insights on stylization. It goes over anthropomorphification, clothing your figure, and there are some really great learns in it. I just don't know if it's the best resource for the beginner artist. I think you kind of have to walk in with a deep understanding of anatomy in order to translate what Choi is discussing. I did have a lot of fun working from it though. It's just like a fun stylization, and it does give you some good anatomy. It's not going to give you the nuanced anatomy of like a Stonehouse or allow for the freedom of Tom Fox's book. Still a solid resource, especially if you want to do more stylized characters. I think this still has its place in drawing the figure, but it's going to be outside of the realm of realism. Now, this last book is Anatomy for Sculptors, and it's kind of my reference book. It has a lot of really great imagery, and it shows a lot of parts of the human body from multiple perspectives. There's really no copy, like there's no instruction to this book, so it's not going to be something that you read and absorb information, but it is a great reference guide. It goes over some of the emotions of the face, it gives you proportions of the head at different stages of life, and I find myself cracking this book open whenever I have a very specific question. Because it's not explicitly geared towards drawing, there's not really any discussion about how to render form or any of those kind of practical techniques. So this is just more squarely, what is the human anatomy, where do the fat deposits build on a human, and that kind of information. I do really appreciate it, and it is something that I definitely wanted to address in this video because I do reference it quite often. Now, I definitely read these books in a different order, but if I was going to do it again, here's the order I'd read them in. Hampton for base understanding, Loomis for a step up the skill ladder, Fox for advanced understanding, Choi for stylization, and Sculptors for everyday reference. If you want to pick up any of these books yourself, I'll leave some links in the description. Thanks for watching the video, and throw me a like if you found this beneficial. And if you have any figure drawing books you love, leave a comment. I'm always looking for new recommendations.